Sectors of Venezuela's opposition and the government are to resume talks on Friday, after the main opposition alliance announced it will take part in November's elections, ending a 3-year boycott. A new shipment of 130,000 doses of the Sputnik-V vaccine against COVID-19 arrived in Nicaragua on Wednesday to strengthen the vaccination campaign. And despite the sudden outpouring of Western concern for women's rights as the Taliban resumes power in Afghanistan, many Afghan women have returned to the work as normal. From the headquarters of TeleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm Gladys Quesada. In an exclusive interview for TeleSUR, the president of the National Assembly of Venezuela, Jorge Rodriguez, provided details of the upcoming talks between sectors of the Venezuelan opposition and the government to address the country's pressing needs.
An already defined agenda with the representatives of the Venezuelan right-wing sectors. A memorandum of understanding was signed with a roadmap for the upcoming talks. We will hold the talks on Friday afternoon. We will have some proposals in hand, mainly focused on economic and social issues concerning the people of Venezuela and the refund of resources that belong to Venezuela so as to meet the needs of the entire population.
The head of the Venezuelan parliament also stressed that the country's international affairs must be resolved through dialogue.
Can't do anything about those who miss the opportunity. We have told them over and over again that matters between Venezuelans are settled between Venezuelans. We have told them this ad nauseum. One of the things that has done a lot of damage, even to the internal development of policy within the Venezuelan opposition, has been that they are constantly asking for permission and asking for authorization. They are absolutely at the mercy and following what officials of the U.S. administration say.
The main Venezuelan opposition alliance announced on Tuesday it will take part in November's elections, ending a 3-year boycott. In a statement, the opposition alliance said it will participate in the November 21st elections for mayors and state governors. The announcement comes as opposition sectors and the government continue talks hosted by Mexico and with the mediation by Norway in a bid to solve the political crisis that has seen major attempts at destabilization and plots to overthrow the democratically elected government of President Nicolás Maduro. The Democratic Unity Roundtable Coalition boycotted the 2018 presidential vote that saw Maduro re-elected and the 2020 legislative elections in which it lost control of parliament. In both cases, it dismissed the elections as fraudulent, without any evidence, and as part of a long-running refusal to recognize the Maduro government.
And although I cannot speak for the other political organizations, I can say they have had a consultative process. It has been profound, extended, and as much as we have been cautious and even somewhat embarrassed to say it publicly for fear of criticism, insults, and offenses, we thought about it very well before participating. We took a step forward, and we are going to participate on November 21st.
The Venezuelan president welcomed the opposition's move to participate in the upcoming elections.
The political gesture of participating in the elections again is to be applauded. With the weight of the Constitution and justice on the one hand, and with the weight of democracy and inclusive dialogue on the other, we have been building this path.
President Maduro also informed that he will send a request to Mexico to demand the recovery of Venezuelan assets seized by sectors linked to Juan Guaidó and will call for the lifting of all sanctions.
That is why Venezuela will submit in Mexico, in the second round of negotiations with Guaidó-allied opposition, a strong petition with all the economic demands for the recovery of the country's economy, the return of the gold stolen in London and bank accounts in the world, and the lifting of all sanctions against PDVSA.
Argentina's foreign minister has ratified his country's sovereignty over the continental shelf disputed by the government of Chile. Addressing the Foreign Relations Committee of the Argentine Chamber of Deputies, Felipe Sola stated that the Chilean government's bid to appropriate part of Argentina's continental shelf goes against the Treaty of Peace and Friendship established between the two countries in 1984. The foreign minister pointed out that Chile's decision violates Article 7 of the agreement, which grants its rights over the shelf west of the meridian, while Argentina has sovereignty over the east meridian. In this context, Sola insisted that diplomacy is the only way to solve this dispute. Indigenous peoples demonstrated in front of the High Court in Brazil's capital, Brasilia, on Wednesday as it resumed a case that could eliminate reservations on their ancestral lands in the interest of agribusinesses, logging and mining companies.
Our perspective is that the Supreme Court will rule in favor of indigenous peoples, thus respecting our Constitution.
To demarcate indigenous land is to demarcate and guarantee the life of humanity itself. We are 5% of the world's population, but we protect around 83% of the world's biodiversity. To demarcate territory is to guarantee the breathing of the planet.
President of Mexico, Andrés Manuel López Obrador, presented his third quarterly government report this Wednesday, in which he stressed the challenges stemming from the COVID-19 pandemic. The Mexican head of state said he was satisfied with his administration efforts, but recognized the challenges ahead. He underlined the economic recovery of the country and the moves to roll back the privatization process in the public sector. As part of these efforts, he pointed out that in the near future he will send a bill to Congress, which he intends to strengthen the Federal Electricity Commission, the state-owned electric utility of Mexico. Heading towards the second period of his presidency, López Obrador also stated that corruption is the pandemic of pandemics. Various polls, 60% of the population approve of his administration.
Fellow Mexicans, the transformation is on the way, and although it is necessary to keep uncovering the huge neoliberal farce and to promote the change of mentality among the people, because that is what's most essential, we are also getting rid of vices and dishonest practices in government management. A decisive step was to stop the privatizing trend with a steady hand.
The Mexican president also announced that he will present a constitutional reform bill to repair the damages caused by privatizations in the public sector.
As for the electric industry, we are going to send to Congress a constitutional reform initiative that will make it possible to repair the serious damage that privatization caused to the public sector and the popular economy.
And we'll be right back after this very short break, so don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. A new shipment of 130,000 doses of the Sputnik-V vaccine against COVID-19 arrived in Nicaragua on Wednesday to strengthen the vaccination campaign. The shipment arrived at the Augusto Sandino International Airport, where it was received by authorities of the Ministry of Health and the ambassador of the Russian Federation to Nicaragua, Alexander Kokolikov. Health Minister Marta Reyes thanked Moscow for its collaboration, stressing the importance of the new batch, which will allow to continue with the vaccination campaign in the country by applying second doses. Health authorities in the Dominican Republic confirmed on Wednesday the detection of a new coronavirus strain called Mu in several provinces of the country. Director General of Epidemiology Ronald Skews reported that the Mu strain was found in the provinces of Bajoruco, Barahona, Azua, Santo Domingo, and La Vega. He also pointed out that this COVID variant is present in 39 countries, mainly in South America and Europe. Meanwhile, the World Health Organization reported that preliminary data regarding this new strain, first detected in Colombia, shows it has mutations that have the potential to evade immunity provided by previous COVID-19 infection or vaccination. The strain had been previously identified in the country, but no new cases had been detected since May. Cuban health authorities confirmed that the vaccination drive will be boosted to vaccinate 5 million people by the end of November, as the Caribbean nation seeks to immunize 92% of its population against COVID-19. The plan was announced by Dr. Ileana Morales, Director of Science and Technological Innovation of the Cuban Ministry of Health, at a meeting between President Miguel Díaz-Canel and scientists and experts engaged in the fight against the pandemic. A new vaccination schedule was presented, while it was also reported that as of Tuesday, 3.6 million Cubans have completed the 3-dose schemes with the domestically produced Abdala, Soberana O2, and Soberana Plus jabs.
We have to say that this is an intense work. We are holding meetings every afternoon, every night, but this is a challenge that we can meet. We are prepared because we have hundreds of vaccination centers, hundreds of people prepared. We are organized. The conditions are there, and there will be doses. By the end of September, all the population ready to be vaccinated will receive at least their first dose.
Meanwhile, those responsible for the manufacture of vaccines against COVID-19 in Cuba also guaranteed the availability of the necessary doses to cover the new vaccination schedule.
All the vaccines that are required there, which Ileana has mentioned, are either already manufactured or are in the process of being released, or the ingredient is manufactured to make a spill. So there is already a very high probability of having all the vaccines in the month of September.
And we remain on topic. Egypt announced on Wednesday it plans to manufacture 1 billion doses a year of China's Sinovac vaccine, making it the Middle East and Africa's biggest vaccine producer. During a press conference, Egyptian Health Minister Hala Zayed said that under the deal with the Chinese pharmaceutical company, 2 factories in Cairo will handle production, eventually producing more than 200 million doses per year in one factory to cover national needs. A second factory will produce 3 million doses per day, or around 1 billion a year, with a view to exporting and responding to the demand for COVID-19 vaccines in Africa. The Director General of the World Health Organization, Tedros Ghebreyesus, and the German Chancellor Angela Merkel inaugurated the new global WHO hub for pandemic and epidemic intelligence in Berlin this Wednesday. The hub aims to bring together partners worldwide to collaborate and create the tools and data needed for all countries to prepare, detect, and respond to pandemic and epidemic risks.
Even as we respond to the pandemic, we must learn the lessons it's teaching us. One of the most clear is the need for new, powerful systems and tools for global surveillance to collect, analyze, and disseminate data on outbreaks with the potential to become epidemics and pandemics. Viruses must move fast, but data can move even faster. With the right information, countries and communities can stay ahead of emerging risks and save lives.
The COVID-19 pandemic also showed what we can do when we truly join forces. Experts from around the world have been expanding their knowledge at an incredible rate and sharing it to decode the coronavirus.
And now we address other topics. Heavy rain threatened to intensify flooding in the east of India, a situation that has already affected over 3 million people. Experts say climate change has worsened the annual monsoon weather patterns. Bihar, India's poorest state, and wildlife-rich Assam have been battered for a week by continuous rainfall, resulting in rivers overflowing and leaving people stranded in villages. In Assam, the water level of the Brahmaputra, a powerful trans-boundary river system of the Himalayas, has exceeded critical levels. Some villages recorded floods of up to 2 meters, forcing thousands of people to abandon their homes and move to higher ground. The country's Met Department warned that heavy downpours could continue in the two states until Thursday.
We are suffering greatly. It is difficult to get food, drinking water, and other essential items. Many villagers do not have their own boats, so people are suffering. 80% of Povitara Wildlife Sanctuary is under floodwater. 17 anti-poaching camps are underwater, and if the floodwater keeps rising like this, we have to evacuate a few camps. All the wild animals are taking shelter on the higher lands in the sanctuary.
And we have more stories coming up after this final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back. Despite the sudden outpouring of Western concern for women's rights as the Taliban resumes power in Afghanistan, many Afghan women have returned to work as normal. Health and education workers say they have so far seen little change compared to early August, before the arrival of the Taliban. Most women did not have the right to work during the first Taliban government from 1996 to 2001, with a few exceptions, especially in the health sector. On Friday, the Taliban asked these women workers to resume work normally. Over the past 20 years of foreign intervention and war, not much has changed for Afghan women beyond the capital, Kabul, despite the Western portrayals of progress. As women, teachers returned to their classes, the Taliban declared that girls and teenagers could continue to study, even at university, but not in mixed-sex classes. Separation of the sexes has already been a reality since 2001, except in university and elementary school.
In the beginning, when this situation occurred, it was very difficult for us. We were worried about what would happen, but thankfully there were no problems regarding our work. Our supervisor and the Taliban requested us to be at the hospital to carry out our duties. Our request is that we want to make progress. We don't want to be backward. In any situation, under any government, if anything happens, we are not afraid. We are Afghan women. We will protect our country and we want to serve our people. When we see a patient, we feel their pain ourselves. Because of this, we are never afraid of anything. We serve neutrally.
Russian President Vladimir Putin criticized the United States' involvement in Afghanistan, stressing that its 20-year-long military presence in the Central Asian country ended only in tragedy. The statements came as Putin spoke to teenagers to mark the start of the new school year in Russia.
U.S. troops were present on that territory of Afghanistan for 20 years, and over those 20 years, they were trying, this can be said without offending anyone, to civilize the local people, but in fact to impose the norms and standards of life in the broadest sense of this word, including political organizations of society. The only result is tragedies and losses for those who were doing that, for the United States, and especially for the people who live on the territory of Afghanistan. This is a zero result, if not negative.
The Russian Foreign Ministry has called on the Netherlands to present clarification about its support to terrorists operating in Syria. Foreign Ministry spokesperson Maria Zaharova referred to the revelations in the Dutch parliament that Amsterdam has been involved for several years in providing support not only to the fake Syrian humanitarian workers known as the White Helmets, but also to the terrorist group known as the Sultan Murad Division, which is fighting the Syrian Arab Army. The Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries and its allies agreed to stick to their existing policy of gradual oil output increases during a meeting this Wednesday. Oil prices stayed following the news that the OPEC Plus countries had agreed to stick to a policy from July of phasing out record output cuts by adding 400,000 barrels per day a month to the market. The group faces United States pressure to raise production more quickly. Russia's top negotiator, Alexander Novak, noted that OPEC Plus has fulfilled a goal of removing excess oil from the global market, and it is important to keep the market balance. There is still a climate of concerns about the possible collapse of crude oil prices as the world continues to suffer the impacts of COVID-19. And representatives from the United Nations and the International Organization for Migration, as well as officials from African countries and the African Union, took part on Wednesdays in the last 2 days of discussions on migration and human mobility inside and outside the continent. The exploitation of migrants and asylum seekers in Africa and the protection of their human rights were among the topics discussed by the officials at the conference, looking at the impact of migration across the African continent. In 2018, more than 160 world governments unanimously adopted the historic Global Compact for Safe, Orderly and Regular Migration Framework, which was set to manage international migration in a safer and more dignified way. However, this is yet to become a reality. The conference took place ahead of the representation in 2022 of a report reviewing the implementation of the framework globally.
The real challenge, in short, is to ensure that migrants are the real center of the responsible migration policy, based on solidarity and in line with the 23 objectives of the Global Compact for Safe, Orderly and Regular Migration Pact.
In Africa, intra-regional mobility is larger than extra-regional human mobility, which is not well known beyond Africa. Second, conflict-led migration is a relevant feature in some regions of Africa. Food insecurity and economic needs are also an important factor in regard of human mobility. Climate change is becoming an increasing factor also in human mobility in Africa. There is a criminalization of migration in some countries, which has led to increasing smuggling and trafficking of migrants.
The strictest abortion law in the United States took effect in the state of Texas this Wednesday, after the Supreme Court and the federal court declined to act on emergency appeals to put it on hold. The law is the most far-reaching restriction on abortion rights in the U.S. since the High Court's landmark Roe v. Wade decision legalized abortion across the country in 1973. The Texas law prohibits abortions once a fetal heartbeat is detected, which is usually around 6 weeks and often before most women know that they are pregnant. There are no exceptions for rape or incest, although there is a medical emergency exception. The law also allows citizens to bring civil suits against anyone who helps a pregnant woman seeking a banned abortion. Abortion providers are asking the Supreme Court to block the ban, saying that the law rules out of 85% of abortions in Texas. Pope Francis on Wednesday said that corruption in the Vatican was a recurring disease and that he hoped current trials and resulting justice will mean that these acts stop.
We must do all we can to stop this, but this is an old story. Looking back, we have the story of Marcinkus. We remember that well. We have the story of Danzig, the story of Soka. It's a recurrent disease. I think that today we have made progress in the consolidation of justice in the Vatican. During the last 3 years, progress has been made in such a way that justice has become more independent due to the technical means, even with recorded witness statements, the current technical things, appointments of new judges, of the new public prosecutor's office, and this has been moving things forward, and it has helped. The structure helped to face this situation that seemed that it would never exist.
And we have come to the end of this news brief, but remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please join us on social media. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and Telegram. For TeleSUR English, I'm Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.